1998, just another year, or just the best year ever? We're here counting down the top 10 games of 1998. So let's get to it. Number 10, Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit. This was actually the first Need for Speed game I ever really played. I remember renting it from the Blockbuster Video on the suggestion of a really good friend of mine at the time who, and I quote, told me it had awesome music because the song said, "Brace your erection." True story. The music is actually pretty decent though. I'd never listened to it outside of the game. Thankfully, that's not all it's got going for it. What really drove me toward this game, and indeed still drives me toward the series in general, was one absolute thing. Cop chases. How is it that this idea as a mechanic was so underused in gaming? I'd argue even now, outside of this and Grand Theft Auto, it still is an underused idea in gaming. God, the cop chases. This isn't the first time the series had cop chases, but this is the first time they were this awesome. Running away from cops is an absolute blast. Unfortunately, at the time, playing as the cop was only allowed on the PC version, and well, I didn't have a PC back then. But I bet it'd been great. What could have been. Number 9, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. I know this game might not seem like much of anything nowadays, but back then it was sort of a technological marvel on consoles, graphically speaking of course. Large, detailed worlds where you get to pilot freaking X-Wings and other cool vehicles from the Star Wars universe. That's just plain rad. Outside of that, it was just your typical arcade-like space shooter in 3D with a mission system. It was pretty fun. A real highlight of the year, and a highlight for Star Wars fans too. They were going to need that because next year that first prequel came out, and well, I think we all know how we feel about that one, right? Number 8, Panzer Dragoon Saga. This one is sort of infamous for reasons not at all related to the game's quality, but more related to its rarity and high price tag because of such. I haven't looked lately, but I do recall a time when it was so hard to find that you'd have to typically shell out close to about $400 to get a copy in decent condition. This was due to it being released at the tail end of the Saturn's life when Sega had initially pulled the plug on the Saturn's life support. Not many copies were made. Well, that's not the only reason the game commanded such a high price though. It's also freaking awesome. On its own, the Panzer Dragoon series is the epitome of rail shooter bliss, possibly only ever challenged by the likes of, say, Star Fox 64. But this isn't just a rail shooter this time. Oh no, it's also an RPG. A damn good one at that. The third game in the Panzer Dragoon series, this entry offers lots of great exploration, both on foot as series first and on Dragonbad. And then there's the combat system. It's some awesome melding of turn-based combat, rail shooter, and everything. Not just this combat. Just has this great cinematic air to it. A lot of modern games could learn from this series about world building. For the beginning and end of the game, they use a fictional language, which I absolutely love, but unlike the rest of the series, they only use it at the start and the end. It lends something genuinely alien to the game, thereby making it much more interesting and engaging, I think, at least to me. The fact that Sega hasn't re-released this game on some platform is downright depressing. Rumors persist that the original data for the game was lost in an office fire or something, which makes porting it a hard thing to do. Hopefully one day this is resolved and many more get to enjoy this game. It's an experience that absolutely is genuinely unique. Number 7, Burning Rangers. Hey, speaking of unique Sega games, we got another one. Burning Rangers is a real love it or hate it kind of game. I personally love it. At first glance at what the premise is, it sounds outright stupid. You're space firefighters fighting fires in space. Yes, that's the game. The entire game. You have jetpacks and you fly around putting out fires. It's a lot like the last game Sonic Team made before this, Knights, in that it's got kind of a strange premise and look to it, but I think it's really great. It's certainly an acquired taste. I think everyone, if they get the chance, should at least try it. It's pretty good, and you can see some of the design elements from it, visually at least, went on to the other series from Sonic Team, such as Phantasy Star Online. It also has some of the most cheesy, most awesome butt rock ever. Have a listen. Number 6, F-Zero X. This game is just plain awesome. Where do I begin? How about the music? Wow, that music. Listen to it. Okay? How about the visuals? Okay, actually the visuals might not look like anything special, even for the time, but what was amazing, actually, was that at the time, what this game was doing visually was pretty cool. There were 30 racers on a track at any given time, and it all ran at a smooth 60 frames per second. That's just unheard of at the time. Until the even more awesome F-Zero GX came out on the GameCube, this was probably the best futuristic racer we've ever had. Another example of what Nintendo was doing at the time, with finally bringing its series from 2D on the Super Nintendo to 3D on the Nintendo 64. Simply marvelous. Number 5, Banjo-Kazooie. Another Nintendo 64 game? Are you surprised? Contender for one of the best 3D platformers ever made, Banjo-Kazooie comes from an era where Rareware still was exclusive to Nintendo and still made games that were actually worth playing. A Mario 64 style open world platformer where you play as a southern bear named Banjo and his wisecracking female bird companion named Kazooie, on their quest to save Banjo's sister from a big fat witch named Gruntilda. This game took the formula that Mario 64 started and cranked it up to 11. More things to collect, better visuals, longer game, bigger levels, just more everything. This was iterative development at its finest, and a great example of what we all used to love about the old Rareware. Number 4, Xenogears. When you ask RPG aficionados what their favorite games are, Xenogears will eventually wind up in almost all of their lists. For good reason. This is an incredibly epic game. You play as Fei Fong Wong on a quest to uncover the secrets of both yourself and the world, dealing with themes that games today only just now are touching on, such as the idea of ego and id, personal identity, religion, corruption of religion, and all sorts of things like that. This game was a hidden gem for a while that took a long time to gather a following it deserved, coupled with great gameplay using a unique sort of fighting game-esque combo system and a great soundtrack. This game, made by veterans who also had previously worked on Chrono Trigger, is simply something everyone should play. Number 3, Metal Gear Solid. Now we're heading into the flat-out legendary game territory. Metal Gear Solid, the third in the proper Metal Gear series, was one of the first games of its kind to really embrace the idea of being a cinematic interactive piece of fiction. For a lot of people, this was the first time they were introduced to Solid Snake, a now infamous character in the game industry. You're on a quest to stop what is seemingly your mullet-haired doppelganger from launching nukes at the United States, if he doesn't get the body of your quote-unquote father, Big Boss. This brings you to a small island off the coast of Alaska. This is a sneaking mission where you're tasked to use intelligence and stealth to finish the game, which is also sort of unique. Even though it's been done before in previous entries of the series, it's not an idea that has really catched on, well, not until now, but back then it was still fairly new. If you haven't played this, you need to. Just avoid the GameCube version, it's not as good. I'll probably get stabbed for saying that. Number 2, Star Siege Tribes. Star Siege Tribes is an incredible PC-only title. I'll admit to discovering this title way later than it came out, but I just can't leave it off this list. This is an incredibly good and incredibly influential game whose influence has been sort of forgotten or unrespected over time. It pretty much defined the modern large-scale multiplayer FPS. Chances are, if you've played one of the following series, it owes something to the Traps legacy, such as Battlefield, the later Unreal Tournaments, Halo, all kinds of things borrow something from this. Battlefield especially was directly inspired by this. The designers of Battlefield 1942 said that they basically wanted to take this game and throw a World War II color of paint on it, and that's basically how we got Battlefield 1942. If you haven't played this, what's wrong with you? Get it. It's free. It's now free. You can download it. I'll provide a link in the description where you can get it. Play it today. People still play it. It's awesome. Number 1, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This is not only my favorite game of 1998, but quite possibly my most favorite game of all time. I remember the anticipation I had for this long before it even came out. I'd collect every magazine with any reference to it on the cover. I'd cut out screenshots and tape them to a spot on my closet. I even traced out a shield shape from the logo to make a shield-shaped clock in shop class in school. Then I played it. Oh my god. This was a wonderful game. This was the game that introduced Z-targeting, a system still in use by many games, including current Zeldas today. It also had a night and day cycle, which to me was the first time I had seen such a thing in the game. I remember just sitting in Hyrule Field and watching the sunrises and the sunsets. Then I'd run and hide because in that game, for whatever reason, night freaked me out. I mean, skeletons rose from the ground at night. Come on, that'd scare anyone else, right? Right. Set before any other Zeldas at the time, you play as a child version of Link set out to save Hyrule. But through a series of events and, of course, good old-fashioned time travel, you wind up in the future as an adult where things have all gone to hell, allowing you to time travel back and forth and setting forth various tropes the series has followed since. This game was amazing. Not only that, this game was responsible for what became a long story discussion in the Zelda fandom about the series' timeline, due to the nature of how the timeline may or may not have split. It was later confirmed, way later confirmed, like only a few years ago, that the timeline did indeed split in this game. Confirmed officially by Nintendo in the book called Hyrule Historia. I don't recommend you play this game. I demand you play it. That's it for my top 20 games of 1998. Was something left off that you wanted to see? Don't agree with my list? Feel free to let me know in the comments, as well as your suggestions of other games you would want me to look at. If you like my videos, or if you don't like my videos, just feel free to leave a comment about it. And if you do like my videos, feel free to subscribe to my channel or follow me on Twitter. Now, I gotta go eat. Goodbye.